Hey folks, it's Dr. Rowe. Hope you're well. Just wanted to tackle a subject around you going out in your property business when it comes to meeting sellers and potentially going into a negotiation. So actually, literally in the last 48 hours, I went out to look at a property that we're buying, a bigger project, not like a typical sort of buy to let. This would be like almost like a hotel type model. But this applies to any situation. So whether you're looking at a bigger project like that, whether you're going in to look at a smaller baby, your first baby buy-to-let property, or maybe you're going out to meet somebody and you want to start that sort of process of getting to know them before you actually put an offer in. There's several aspects to this. People get very nervous about the idea of going into an estate agent, sitting down with a vendor, feeling like they look stupid, or maybe they can't get the communication right there. A bit of a block going on in their heads. And so they arrive there and maybe they walk out and they've forgotten what they were supposed to have asked, or they feel frustrated because they didn't ask the right questions, or they didn't get across the message they wanted to get across. And that creates tension, so that the next time that person goes to see, for example, a vendor of a property, they carry the same kind of fears with them, but they're just magnified more. So oddly enough, this can perpetuate and it can actually get worse, not better, unless you're prepared. So what I've done is, if anyone's currently going out to have a look at properties, I just want to get a drink actually, I'm feeling a bit thirsty here. Hopefully that's going to come into focus again. Yeah, no. Okay, bear with me. There we go. So yeah, if you're going out to look at properties, let me give you 4 things to consider. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you know the vendor or not. If you do, you can kind of move through this quite quickly. If you don't, it's really important you do this. Either way, no matter what the circumstances, you've got to follow a structured approach to this, as opposed to just jumping in, looking at the property and then going right, and then starting the negotiation, or maybe wanting to make an offer. So the first thing is just to relax. Easy way to do that is to breathe. Our bodies, smoking, although albeit we know now is not good for your health. For a lot of people who are stressed, it's not just the cigarette smoke that's going into them that's actually making them feel relaxed. It's actually forcing them to breathe down into their lungs. So you can actually do this yourself. You can literally just center yourself. Ideally, take a deep breath through your nose and then out through your mouth. Now, you don't do this directly in front of the vendor. It's not like you walk in and you go, "Hi, nice to meet you. Before I start, I just need to relax." You want to do this ideally walking down the path before you get there, or if you're in the house and you're walking around and you know you've got to get to a point where you have that sort of face-to-face conversation with them, just go into that space of feeling relaxed. Allow that to happen first, because our goal is to create rapport. Second thing, focus on them rather than you. So if you're going to have conversations, don't make it about you. Make it about them. I met a lovely couple yesterday who are selling this property, which has got an ongoing business, and it's generating a lot of money each year. And when we sat down, it was just a case of getting to know them, understanding who they were, what their background is, what a bit of history to them and the property that they're selling. People really like to do business with people they like, but if you take a photograph and you show it to somebody, one of the first things they do is they look at the photograph to see if they're in that photograph. If you say you're in this photograph, they go, "Oh, where am I?" Because it's just human nature. So if you take that into a conversational piece and you create a photograph into as a conversation, you make the conversation about them, and just understanding their background and who they are. You'll also get a sense of what personality type they are. When I do my communications program, we talk about communication styles, we talk about archetypal delivery styles, but we also talk about the personality type of the person you're dealing with. So asking questions, giving them a chance to open up and be themselves, gives you a really strong sense of who that person is. So shift the focus away from you onto them. And then continue to build the rapport. So I wouldn't get too hung up about talking about the property itself. Get a sense of, how can you get synchronicity with them? How can you get a flow? If they talk about a subject that you're familiar with, magnify that, go into a flow with it and talk about your own experiences, so you bring that in, because they want to know who they're selling to as well. A big part of the sell. A lot of people are very polite when you go into their house and you're selling a property. They don't necessarily want to ask you personal questions. So if you make it your business to communicate, but in a way that opens up a little bit of you. It gives them a chance. It gives people permission. We mirror each other. We match each other. We get into rhythm, and that's the whole point of rapport. So if you want to create the rapport of flow, you're going to have to go into flow yourself. So maybe think about if they mention something that's similar to a situation that you've experienced in the past or experience you've had, then maybe share that, whether it's a painful one or a pleasurable one or a fun one, depending on their personality, of course. Then bring that out, because the minute you do that, they go, oh really, tell me a bit more about that, and now they're showing an interest in you, and now you've got this rapport going, as opposed to just, how big's the house, what's the square meterage, how long you lived here, is there any problems with damp and all that sort of stuff. That's all functionality in the communication. You've got to get into that rapport first. It'll also make you feel, think of it like you're meeting somebody at a pub and you're catching up for the first time. And then finally, once you feel you've got the rhythm and the communication's flowing in that way, now you can start to shift the focus. So as they're starting to talk, maybe bring the conversation back in and around the property itself. So for example, they might be saying, oh yeah, we've always loved to travel, and when we get back, it's just so great, and we've had some really good summers here as well. And then at which point you can say, oh my gosh, so what is it about the area you love most when you have your summers here? And they start to tell you stories, and then you say, well, so which side does the sun come up? And they go, oh yeah, we're sort of north-south facing there. And you say, yeah, I was up in the bedrooms earlier on, and I just love that sort of feel there. So now you're kind of bringing it into the house. And then you can start to ask them questions, and you might say to them, one of the things I was trying to get a measure of was the size of the rooms. Do you know the dimensions of the rooms specifically? And they may do. An analytical person will know them. If not, you could ask the question, would you mind as we go around if I was able to just measure it to get some dimensions to talk to the builders about? And you bring it more and more down into the house, and then you can start to get into specifics. Start shifting the focus towards maybe their sense of urgency. Do they want to sell quickly, slowly, personal circumstances, etc.? But you can't get to that until you've gone through these 3 or 4 stages first. Good. Hopefully that helps. Just practice it. Just do it with anybody you meet for the first time. As you go into properties, it just needs to be shift the focus towards ultimately talking to them about whatever you want to negotiate with them. Great. Have a good day.